Soul Garden.
Hello my fellow Soul Gardeners, and welcome now to Astro 103 episode 6. We're talking about planets in transit. That is where planets are today compared to our chart. And we're starting with the heavy planets, the slow moving ones, so we can really see the trends. We've already talked about Saturn and Jupiter and the Sun and Moon. Those are pretty important. Today I want to talk about Uranus. Now, first of all, I'm going to fully acknowledge that I call it Uranus, not Uranus. That's because I do not want to make a whole legacy of Uranus jokes in my astrology. But Uranus. Uranus is a big deal. As you well know, it's the home planet of the Aquarians. It is the innovation vibration. It's how we innovate ourselves. And it really does take us a notch up in a given transit. It has an 84-year cycle around the Earth. So it ends up in every sign for about 7 years or so, just a little bit over 7 years. So you've heard people say, I went through a 7-year cycle. You know, they say astrologically or psychologically that we have 7-year cycles. That 7-year cycle is pretty much Uranus, all right? Now at tape date, Uranus has just recently kind of crossed the border into Aries. It's actually retrograding right now, but we're about to start a new cycle, a new 7-year cycle. So basically from 2003 to 2010, Uranus was in Pisces. And that meant the whole society was innovating their spirituality, Pisces, their connection to God universe. We were all taking it up a notch. And really, the birth of Soul Garden was in Uranus and Pisces. Soul Garden has Uranus and Pisces in its chart. Where it is for you is where you are personally innovating and where you will continue to innovate and grow. The best way to look at Uranus and its power is in hindsight. So look to see where Uranus was in Pisces for you. Look at those 7 years. What house was that in? What were you innovating? Now, if you look at it from a house perspective, usually you see a complete transformation, all right? For instance, when Uranus entered into Pisces, I was a worker bee, okay? We're talking about my solar chart now, Taurus. Taurus is, for me, for Uranus and Pisces, I was a worker bee. Basically what I was in society is I showed up a good 9-to-5 boy and did my job and did it well. By the time Uranus left Pisces, or my 11th house, as a Taurus, I was now on camera, a CEO, owned my own company, don't work for anyone but myself and my customers. Completely innovated my relationship to society. So for you as well, look to see what Uranus has done the last 7 years. What area of your life has it innovated? And really you can look at every house and have that sort of definition. Overall, Uranus in Pisces means we have innovated our connection to our higher self. And literally, I worked in a very material job also. It was pretty much about the money, and by the end, all my work was spiritual and in society. So I saw that arc as well. See where you have gone from mundane to more spiritual, to more of a, what's the word I'm looking for, a groovy perspective, more of a compassionate perspective. That's what Pisces is about. Now, we're going to have a whole Uranus special here in Soul Nirvana, but Uranus now is moving into Aries, where it will be for the next 7 years. The last time, actually, Uranus was in Aries was 1927, if I'm not mistaken. How's that for my math? Yeah, 1927, it entered into Aries. What this means is our ego energy, the way we present ourselves, the whole planet, is going to rapidly innovate. And it innovated back then, too. Back then, there were lots of ego-based changes going on, including the stock market crash, which is all from ego and greed, basically. Also, people trying to fly the Atlantic for the first time, those types of things, big fits of ego, you know, very Houdini kind of energy was all coming out onto the scene, and people were making a name for themselves, and their name was most important and all that sort of thing. So ego crashing us and also ego building us. All of our egos and our strength, our ability to be strong in an idea and push forward no matter what. That's what Aries is about. Our ability to hold strong and push. Don't think, don't analyze, don't feel about it. Those are the other states of awareness. Just go, like in Aries, just go. And wherever Aries is in your chart is where you just go. So let's say, for instance, you have a Libra rising and Aries is in your 7th house. That means that you use Aries, or you go in life, or you feel strong in life in your marriages. It's your marriages and partnerships that make you feel strong if you have Uranus in the 7th house. In that example, that is the part of you that's going to innovate. So in the next 7 years, you may feel strong by one thing in one area. It used to just be that you needed a simple marriage, and by 7 years later, when this is complete, it has to be the best marriage, and you need the best business partnerships, and you need to be the best, whatever you define as the best. Now here's the downside to Uranus, the last little piece I want to talk about today, which is the breakdown, breakthrough energy. Uranus has one motive, to innovate. And if you're in the way, it's going to huff, and it's going to puff, and it's going to blow your house down. So for those who are walking the earth ignorant or unaware of where they have built their homes out of straw, those people end up going through a major breakdown. And since we're talking about ego here with Aries in the next 7 years, ego is designed by spiritual nature to resist. It's designed to move forward. So no matter where Uranus is in your chart today and where it's going in the next 7 years, you don't want to resist, even though your Aries vibration has a tendency to resist. I think this is why the stock market completely crashed. There was no modification. It wasn't like gentle Pisces where you can kind of synergy energy your way through it. Aries pretty much is or isn't. If you know Rams, they either do or they don't. And so there may be a crash. There may be a breakdown somewhere wherever you have Uranus and Aries. And don't worry, that breakdown isn't really scheduled until early spring of 2011. All right, so that's when you're really going to start to see the breakdowns. The good other flip side of that is breakthrough. As soon as the little pig has his house blown down, that little pig looks over and sees his brother's out of brick, and he realizes he has a breakthrough. I should have built my house out of brick, right? So if you do go through breakdowns, let's say in that 7th house example, you go through a breakdown of your marriage, you will see pretty quickly why it broke down. The universe gives you instant awareness of why, how, and how not to do that in the future. So it's not like this long, drawn-out, painful lesson. It's pretty quick, like the Band-Aid being ripped off. You have the pain at first of the breakdown, but you do have the insight of the breakthrough. Now, for those of you who are constantly looking to innovate, so if you're in a marriage and you're looking for it to get better and better and better and better and better, which is my 7th house example here, well, then you don't have to go through the breakdown because you yourself are seeking breakthrough. So Uranus does allow us just to innovate if our eyes are wide open and we're constantly looking to innovate. When we stop innovating our life, wonk, the rug gets pulled out from under us, we lose the partner, we lose the house if it's the 4th house, we lose our voice if it's the 3rd house, literally lose your voice. I mean, you'll lose it in order to gain it or respect what you had. And that's Uranus. It's kind of a double-edged sword. And Uranus does everything it wants on its own anyways. It spins backwards, for crying out loud. All right, so that wraps up Uranus in transit. I sure hope you've enjoyed it. Look to see in your charts where you'll be innovating in the next 7 years. When I come back next week, we're going to talk about Pluto. See you then.